oftentimes when I work with brands that have somebody at the top, obviously CMO level, the very first thing that they want to do is push value props harder. Toughest part about that, people aren't buying stuff for the reason you think they're buying stuff. Value props often lead to fatigue, especially
Mm.
in ads. So over time, you're going to have to just produce more and more ads and think of like a million different ways to position your value props, which again, if everybody else is selling the same value prop that you are, the whole industry gets blended. What's the actual deeper emotion beneath the purchasing emotion that's happening within your customer base?
Welcome back, everyone. Welcome to episode 4 of Triple Whale's 10 Tactics to Master in order to have the biggest and best Q4 you can possibly have. This episode is all about how to understand your true value props. It's something that's misunderstood in the e-commerce world. And I brought on a fantastic guest that have studied consumer psychology for more than a decade. She's much smarter than me. She's actually the one that has opened my eyes to how misunderstood our value props were at one time. So I'm thrilled to be joined by Sarah Levinger.
Hi, thanks
What's
for
up, Sarah?
having me.
How are you?
I'm so excited to chat. This is my favorite topic is
Same.
value and value props. So
Same.
yes.
For the folks who don't know who you are, there might be a couple of them listening. Give me the 45-second background. How did you get started in this line of work? And then what do you do now?
Oh gosh, 45 seconds.
That's it.
I studied people for 10 years and then I applied it to advertising. And then I accidentally fell into paid advertising. And then I started posting on Twitter and people didn't really know anything about what I was
All right, all
advertising.
right, all
So
right. Give
then
me
it
the
just
minute and a
blew up.
half version then.
I actually started in this industry when I was 20. I was marketing industry, not paid advertising. But I've been doing this for a long time, mostly because I didn't want people to tell me what to do. I didn't deal well with bosses, unfortunately. I was always very kind, but I just had a hard time like believing what they were saying was true. So I would often just like go off in the corner and do my own stuff, and it ended up well for me. But during that time period when I just didn't want a real job, I just decided to be a freelancer. And I had a lot of people that kept coming up and asking me, like, do you know how to do WordPress websites or SMS? Do you know how to run email? And I would always say yes, because I needed the money. That's the God honest truth. And so I went to the library of all places because this was 2012 and there was not a whole lot of tutorials on YouTube on how to do stuff yet. So I'd have to go to the library and check out these like 1980s textbooks on all these different things. And right next to all the marketing section was this giant section on psychology and consumer behavior and neuroscience. And I just got hooked. Like I couldn't get enough of it. And so I read all these really weird textbooks from the 80s. And then I just kind of devoured the entire section. Anytime there was a new book, I was like, yes. And then I did that for 10 years and didn't tell anybody I knew anything about applying psychology to advertising until I got to paid advertising. Again, accidentally fell into that right before COVID. And then I got on Twitter mostly because I was lonely and I was like at home with 2 babies. And I was like, I'm going to go crazy if I have to sit here and not talk to people. So, yeah, got on Twitter and I started sharing a ton of like, you could apply this psychology hack to advertising in this way, and shared a bunch of like the new strategies that I was doing because I was working for a small agency at the time. And it kind of just exploded from there. So that's my
Oh yeah.
backstory. Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. Well, let me share with everyone how we kind of met and started working together, because then that'll segue nicely into how misunderstood our value props were at the time and how to
I'm
uncover the
ready.
real reasons why people are buying products from us. So, as you guys should know by episode 4 of this thing, I'm Nate. I'm the VP of marketing for a regional grain watch company. We specialize in watches made from unique and reclaimed materials. So our most popular collections are inlaid with whiskey barrel wood and military ammo crate wood and tone wood from Taylor guitars and a whole bunch of other stuff. So for the last decade, a lot of the advertising for our brand has called out those features and has told people that you should buy our watch because it's inlaid from whiskey barrel wood. And if you're a guy that likes to drink whiskey, you should buy this. And we fell into the trap that I think a lot of e-commerce brands fall into, where we assume and project that our value props are really just kind of our differentiating features within our own industry, right? When saying you should buy our watch because it's inlaid with this type of wood, we're indirectly comparing it to every other watch out there. And I believe to uncover your true value props, you shouldn't ask what makes your product different. You should ask yourself, why does your category exist in the first place? And when you get into the question of why
100%.
does a watch exist, I'll give you a spoiler alert. It's not to tell time.
Not anymore. It
Not
used to be.
anymore.
Not anymore.
But then we really get into all of the kind of emotions behind it. So, Sarah, can you let people know when we first worked together, how dumb did you think I was? And
You were very smart. Are you kidding
no, but like
me? You hired me.
how is that kind of process of researching our customers, and what reasons did you uncover for why people were
Yeah.
really buying from us?
There's a really interesting thing I think that's happening in the industry, and it's been happening for a very long time. And it's what I would call cyclical thinking um, in this industry. It's not a bad thing per se. The difficult part that we face as marketers is where do you go to find education, right? How do you get more education on the things that you don't know that you don't know? Oftentimes, when I work with brands that have somebody at the top, obviously CMO level, that is trying to come up with better ways to position the product so that we can kind of outcompete people. The very first thing that they want to do is push value props harder. And it's a habitual thing. It's not a bad thing. It's just what we've been taught to do as marketers, mostly because the majority of us were trained up in the direct response era
Mm,
where everything was focused deep on like, how do we do it? Who do we do it for? And how do we do it better than everybody else? Toughest part about that, as you just so astutely brought up, people aren't buying stuff for the reason you think they're buying stuff. So when we first worked together, one of the very first thing I did was come in and try and understand what are the underlying emotions that are behind this sale, because it's not like you guys weren't doing well. You guys were
yep.
actually like doing fairly well based upon your value props. I have a hard time with it because value props often lead to fatigue, especially
Mm.
in ads. So over time, you're going to have to just produce more and more ads and think of like a million different ways to position your value props, which again, if everybody else is selling the same value prop that you are, the whole industry gets blended. So we started by understanding what's the actual deeper emotion beneath the purchasing emotion that's happening within your customer base.
Awesome. And we're gonna run through kind of the 9 core emotions that are often our true value props. But first, I'm gonna uh, let everyone in on the secret of why people buy original grain watches. Sarah uncovered that the 3 core emotions were esteem, experience, and nurturance. So we have kind of a segmented buying cohort of the men that are buying these watches for themselves, and the women that are buying watches for the man in their life, most commonly their husband or father or son. So these reasons of acceptance and esteem for the guys buying it for themselves, I think you'd agree, are probably true for every watch company out there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
And
pretty common.
that's where I started to ask myself, all right, why do watches exist at all? In 2024, when we all have a phone on us, I
Yeah.
have 2 phones on me that tell the time constantly. It's on my laptop, it's on my other monitor, it's in my
Yep.
car. I don't need to know what time it is ever. But watches exist as a symbol of status,
Yep.
and
Status
men
symbol.
choose which watch they want depending on who they want acceptance from and who they
Oh,
want to be looked up to. So
exactly. Yep. Yep.
the
Yep.
mindset of the guy that buys himself a Rolex is actually the same as the guy that buys himself a watch from Original Grain, even though
Mhm.
our watches are 300 bucks and you can get into a starter Rolex for like 7 grand. The difference is their tribe. The difference is the people that they want to be accepted from. At all the business
Oh,
conferences we go to, that Rolex is a sign that they must have done something right in their career.
yeah.
But for our guys, original grain guys that show up to the bar with a watch inlaid with authentic Jack Daniels whiskey barrel wood, they just want their buddies to know that they drink more than them and that they know more about whiskey than
They
them
wanna
and that they're a
outcompete.
true aficionado of the thing that they're all passionate
Yeah.
about. So let's start from the top, Sarah. Acceptance. can be a core emotion people are buying for. Can you explain a little bit about that
Yeah.
and explain some product categories that might have this core
Yeah.
emotion tied to them?
Yeah, acceptance. Acceptance belonging is a really interesting emotion because and this is applicable to all the emotions. You kind of have to understand how humans actually build their self-worth and their identity into things because without understanding that behavioral context, you're going to have a really hard time coming up with ads that actually speak to that emotion. So, acceptance isn't just about like being accepted by other people. It's more about being surrounded by the people who share the same habits, hobbies, interests, or any sort of like identity as you. So acceptance is not just the original behavior of being accepted by somebody. It's also the habitual behavior of being accepted by a specific group over and over again. That emotion
Interesting.
I love. I can't get enough of that one.
Interesting. What kind of industries and categories do you see that work well with often?
Acceptance, is an interesting one because it's applicable in a large amount of places.
Yeah.
But in general, this is a weird one. Parents is a big industry for
Mm,
acceptance because moms in particular want to be accepted by other moms.
yeah.
So we'll often vet, right? Like our behaviors with other parents. Which bottles did you buy? What kind of like snuggie did
Mhm.
you buy? What kind of diapers do you use? We're looking for validation that what we think is what they think. We try and align with people pretty heavily, and that's coming from a mom.
Awesome.
I constantly ask people, "Is this right?" Acceptance. It's all about I wanna belong with the moms and align my behavior with theirs.
So with that in mind, is some of the most effective messaging towards them, social proof and testimonials and UGC from people that
Yeah.
look and sound like them?
Yeah. Oh, I can't tell you how intense it is for parents to use social proof correctly. If you're in the parenting industry, especially, it's not just about like seeing a good quote, good testimonial, 5-star review. It's more about presenting the actual situational experience of the parents you're
Mm,
trying to solve, like it's trying to sell to, and then helping them understand that what they're feeling is okay. Validation is huge for this particular audience.
awesome.
Yeah.
Cool, cool. How important do you think it is for the marketers to at least kinda be able to, relate to their customers on some level? Like, I'm the perfect customer for a regional grain.
Yeah.
28-year-old guy who has several open bottles of whiskey on his desk.
Yeah. Yeah,
But, like
honestly, I think that's like a massive driver of revenue,
yeah.
is having a
Thank you.
customer
Tell my wife that.
inside.
"Sorry,
This
babe,
is the
got a
reason
drink. It's
why
for work."
this is the reason why often you notice that the brands that have a CEO or founder that had the actual problem they're
Mm,
solving now at the top actually do a lot better, I think, because it
yeah,
just
I think it
you
makes
under
all the
you just
sense in the
get it,
world.
and it's not about just getting it, you lived it, right?
Yeah.
Like, you have lived the experience of this customer, and so it's so much easier for you to be like, "I get it," because I talk about this a lot on Twitter. There's references to things inside the industry that nobody else would be able to get, right? So, for instance, there was oh my gosh, I need to look it up now. There's a giraffe. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to figure out what this name is. There's a specific giraffe toy that all parents used to buy. What was it called? Oh my gosh, Sophie, thank you. Jeez, that just left my brain because I'm out of the baby phase. But if you say Sophie the giraffe to any parent that has a baby, they know exactly what that toy is and they know exactly how much it is. This is a $23 silicone squeaky toy giraffe. Every parent on the planet knows
Feels
what this
steep,
one is.
right?
Yes, but the odd part is, if you're in parents, you just know. Like, you would
Yeah.
just know what this is, and you could reference that in your ads pretty easily and draw in a specific type of customer. So this is why I go back to, like, there are relatable experiences in every single industry that you have to know about, and often it's easier if you live them first.
Awesome. Cool, cool. Alright, let's keep it moving. The next one is esteem. Original grain customers want to feel this when they buy a watch. Tell me what that is and what, some other products that make a ton of sense for that.
Oh, Esteem. I often get a lot of pushback on this one because people think they sell Esteem, but they don't know how to actually sell Esteem. And so they get
Ooh,
frustrated
that's
when
interesting.
Esteem doesn't work. So Esteem can go in two different directions. It can be inward, self esteem, self love, or it can be exterior, which is more about appeal. You want people to think you're cooler than you are,
Mm,
or you want to, again, gain acceptance to a group by looking like you adhere to a particular identity.
Mm,
So esteem is weird because it goes in several different directions and you can actually message to it very differently depending on what you're trying to say. For your particular crowd, esteem was focused more on the actual gifting group, if I remember correctly, than it was on the individual buyer. So the individuals, yes, want to look good and they want to like belong to a specific group. They like the way the watch looked, but there was a deeper level of esteem in your gifting crowd than there was in the individuals because the gifters had there was some high stakes, right?
mm.
Because it's often when you give a gift to somebody, and this goes back to like you got to understand cultural behavior. When you give a gift to somebody, uh, depending on their reaction, you may not ever give a gift to them ever again.
Yeah.
For instance, I gave my husband a drone one year that he did not appreciate because I didn't realize this. He's a big time researcher. Didn't like the one that I gave him. He wanted to pick out one for himself, right? I didn't know that. So I gave him a drone and his response was, "Gee,
Yeah.
thanks." So it's a hit to the esteem, man. So for gifters, if you're going to message towards this esteem focus, you need to talk about the fact that this might be the gift that he will remember for the rest of time, right?
Mm.
You're going to be able to feel like a good gift giver if you purchase this for him. So esteem is interesting because it warps in weird ways.
Awesome.
Yeah.
When it's about inward, when it's about kind of like self esteem,
Yeah.
how do you message it without being too on the nose?
Mm.
Because like I always think about back to the watch example, a guy buying a watch for himself is always rooted in like a little bit of insecurity.
Yep.
And like I'm not shitting on anyone that buys watches. We all have the need for self-esteem and to feel good about ourselves.
Yep.
And putting something on like a hat or a watch or a beard makes us feel better when we go out. So I'm not,
Yeah.
talking shit about anyone here, but it's all rooted in a little bit of insecurity.
Yeah.
But I couldn't sell a watch being like, "Hey, are you an insecure li- little girl on the inside? Buy this watch. It's manlier and tougher,
That would
right?"
be a really interesting ad.
Right.
I'd love to see if that wins.
So,
Wow.
what we've
Epic.
done instead is we try to speak positively
Yeah.
about our customers and like almost an aspirational view these customers have of themselves. And one of our
Yeah.
best headlines this year has been our watches are smooth and unique, just like the guys who wear them.
I love that headline. Yep.
And
Yep.
that
That's nice.
says the insecurity thing without saying the insecurity thing, you know?
Yep. Yep, 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 100%. It's interesting when you start talking about like self-love and acceptance because most brands that I know want to go after that aspect of like love yourself, like you're perfect the way you are. It's blatant, right?
Mm,
It's too obvious.
yeah,
And this is the thing that I think is most important to learn as a marketer nowadays is how to be subtle
yeah.
with what you're saying. Subtle sells. It just does. It sells incredibly well. So,
Well, it
for
feels
instance,
better to hear, like, when I say
yeah.
our watches are smooth and unique, I'm not insulting you at all,
Yep. Yeah.
but subconsciously, I'm telling you, if you identify as smooth and unique and rugged and dependable and all the other adjectives we
Yes.
use in variations of that headline, then this is the watch for you, and I think
Yes.
that
Yeah.
hits people a lot softer, basically.
Yeah, well, and you're also bringing up, associations. So the brain is weird because it will take basically everything you've ever experienced in your life and connect them all together inside there. So you might have an association with coffee that also links somehow oddly to like Fox News. Why? We don't know. There was something that happened in there a long time ago. So this idea of smooth and unique links back to the drink that the actual like, watch is made of.
Mhm.
So they can see the smoothness of the actual pour, and they can also feel smooth as a person.
Yeah.
So there's tons of associations that are created when you do messaging, and this is why I tell marketers, I don't think you guys realize what you're doing when you're doing this, because there's some weird stuff that you can bring
Yeah.
up in somebody just by saying it a very particular way.
Yeah. Well, and we would never be able to get to this level of messaging and testing if we didn't understand what these
Totally.
core emotions were. So let's keep it going. The next one, freedom. People buy for the desire of independence and
Yeah.
autonomy. Tell me about
Yeah.
that.
Freedom and autonomy. Oh, the American culture is just steeped in this. It's an interesting one because it often comes out in the younger generations, and the older generations will constantly say, like, they don't know how good they have it. It's
Yeah.
so easy now. Which is true. It's true for every single generation. It is actually easier now than it was quite a long time ago. The interesting part about it is when you have an audience that's deeply craving autonomy, you'll often see the opposite behaviors come out, right?
Mhm.
So they'll often be like kind of rebellious, but they'll also seek to be included in things so that they can give their opinion and feel autonomous. It's
Ooh.
very odd. It's like the strangest behavior I've
I
ever
think
seen
you
in my
just
life.
diagnosed our country for why the political discourse is currently how it is.
100%.
People
I'm
wanna
telling
feel
you.
rebellious by being part of a giant group that also and thinks the same thing.
Okay, so when this comes to branding, if you're a brand that sells on autonomy, you got to be real careful about what you are providing this person
Mm,
with an identity. So you can't just provide a place for them to voice, right? That's important. They need a place to voice their opinion, but they also need to feel validated that they're going to be accepted for it. So freedom and autonomy it is difficult. I haven't seen a whole lot of brands do it very well because it's a difficult one to nail.
what are some types of products that would appeal to that?
Oh gosh, to freedom and autonomy. I'm trying to think of one that would like make sense in the D2C sphere. Oddly enough, Apple actually tried to go after this pretty heavily when they first started on the in the industry, because they were the very first to bring the personal computer into the home.
Mm,
So they were only competing against the only other people on the planet, which was Microsoft. And Microsoft was very careful about who they allowed access to their technology. Apple actually went into the industry saying, "We're going to put a PC in every single home in the entirety of America in the world." And so they went after this like kind of screw the man kind of an aspect of like
mm,
you deserve to feel free in your use of technology and you should be autonomous in that. And they did really
interesting.
well with it.
I think
So
I've seen a lot of crypto try to be sold that way too.
100%.
Okay, let's talk about experience. People buying something
Yes.
for the experience, which can also still be a physical good, just like our
Yeah.
watches are.
Yeah.
Talk to us about why and how people are
Yeah.
buying with experience in mind.
Experience also like kind of couples like it's the same basic concept of experience and engagement, right? So this has to do with how you actually experience the world. So oddly enough, most marketers that I know nowadays are very, very good at marketing to experience because this does come down to features, benefits, how the actual product feels in your hand, what you
Yeah,
can do with it, right? So in general, this one is not as difficult, I think, to nail, but it just comes down to as a human, what is your experience of the world gonna be if you purchase this product?
very cool.
Yeah,
Awesome.
easy
What
one.
um what else besides watches can use this kind of experiential
Oh,
approach?
anything,
Yeah.
anything at all. Swiffer is probably the best one that I've ever seen. Swiffer
Mm,
fricking nailed experience because when they came in the industry, P&G, parent company, they actually saw that there was only mops and like brooms and stuff in the actual cleaning aisle. So they brought in a behavioral focused agency to try and figure out how do we introduce a new product that actually solves anything different than what a mop solves. Like, how could you get better than a mop?
right.
So they came in and they actually did real world experiential customer studies where they went to someone's home and watched them use a mop and they saw that they were cleaning the mop more than they were cleaning the floor.
Mm,
So they were like, "Oh, perfect. We didn't know that consumers did this behaviorally. So why don't we just create a mop that you don't have to clean?" And let me just tell you, Swiffer is a multi-billion-dollar product
yeah, it's wild.
because of that. So
I think a lot of, like, alcohol advertising surrounds
yeah.
this as well, like
Mhm.
the Corona Find Your Beach campaign is,
Yes.
like, the ultimate example of,
Corona.
like, guy cracks a Corona at the office or something,
Yes.
or, like, s
Experience,
and,
man.
like, brings him to
Oh,
this beach because that's how it feels to drink one, apparently.
100%, which
I
is funny
wouldn't
because
know,
I
I
don't
only drink Jack
I
Daniels.
was gonna say I don't really drink Corona, but it sounds good. Like, all right,
Huh.
I can mess with that. It's okay.
Alright, let's talk about competence. People
Competence. Oh,
buying because they wanna feel competent. I see this a lot, comes up in probably B2B SaaS if anyone is listening, this might be great for you.
yeah. Oh,
But I know that there are some D to C brands that can apply this
yeah.
as well.
Yeah. Competence. It's interesting. I get like a little emotional about competence because this is I am so susceptible to competence ads. Anybody that wants to sell anything about competence to Sarah, just easily done for me because I'm the type of person that I value intellectual ability, right? Capacity. So anybody that's currently focused on feeling competent will resonate really well with products and messages that talk about the fact that you can feel more capable as a person if you purchase this particular product. So this is the reason why 100%. B2B SaaS is just steeped in competence. The odd part is I don't see a lot of people trying to go after it. Like most of the time, B2B SaaS is straight up feature focused.
Yeah.
They want to solve problems, which is more accomplishment than it is competence.
Yeah.
Yeah. I bet.
So for marketers trying to hit this, do you think they should hit home on like, hey, the best marketers trust this tool? Or
Yeah.
no,
I mean,
go
that's
ahead.
close.
You got a better one?
The most recent one I did this for was actually a B2B brand, tool brand. And I think the best one that we did was you're not the average marketer. So why should your,
Oh yeah.
B2B tool be? And that speaks directly to a little bit of esteem, but also this idea of you're smart, you're
Yeah.
different, right? Like you just have something that none of the other marketers do because you're better than other people. You're more
Hell yeah.
competent.
Let's go.
And
Love that.
that's a blended of like esteem and competence, but it just hits a lot deeper.
Awesome. Cool, cool. All right, let's keep it moving. Number 6. And then just so everyone is aware, on number 9, I'll share the headline that Sarah wrote for us 2 years ago that I've
Yay.
tried and tried and tried again to beat and cannot.
I love
So
that you can't beat it. That's my
stay
favorite.
tuned till number 9. I hate it. Thanks. Bothers me a lot. All right, number
Oh,
6, security, the desire
oh,
to feel safe, protected, and risk-free. So guns are on this, right?
yep,
What
yep.
else fits security, and how can people market to it?
Oddly enough, the pet industry is like rot with security for
Whoa.
people. Mostly because you don't want your dog running into the road. You
Yeah.
don't want him getting out of his backyard. You don't want him choking on something in the house. Like there's a lot of security risk for
Yep.
people with pets. So this is the reason why we see safety harnesses, things with
Mhm.
like fortified buckles, things with like nylon focused, leashes and things
Yeah.
that are like no nothing on the planet could break that. You're
I
just
know
gonna
my
give it to your own.
35-pound dog has, like, fucking Kevlar harnesses and stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's safety focused.
Yeah.
What you're trying to do is reduce your amount of risk, right? Now, the weird part about this is it can go in two different ways. Again, you're trying to reduce your amount of psychological risk or your physical risk.
Mm,
So depending on the product you have and whatever you're marketing, it's very possible that you're trying to reduce psychological friction, not necessarily physical friction.
interesting.
So,
How much of this should be marketed to kind of like fear of loss stuff, fear
mm,
mongering versus
yeah.
highlighting the increased security of using that product?
I get this question a lot from brands who are like, we don't want to become a negative brand. We don't want to
Yeah.
doom and gloom. We don't want to talk about negative things. Negative things happen. They're just a
Yeah.
part of the world and the consumers know it and they feel it. So
Mhm.
I don't necessarily think it's a negative thing to talk about bad things that happen if you can do it correctly. For instance, there's an insurance brand that has a mascot of a guy who's literally just mayhem. I'm sure you know.
Yep.
Yeah. His job is basically to talk about awful things that happen in life and make them funny so they
Yep.
don't feel as heavy. Humor is a great way to talk to this like security focus because it just makes it a little easier to handle.
All right, accomplishment. We've touched on it a little bit so far, but talk about people that are buying
Mhm.
mainly on accomplishment.
Every marketer ever goes after accomplishment. If you've ever ran an us versus them ad, you're going on
Yeah.
accomplishment. If you've
Yep.
ever ran a UGC ad, you're doing accomplishment. I wish marketers would kind of learn how to do this one in different ways because most of the time accomplishment has to do with achieving a goal or getting some sort of resource or, experiencing something in your life that you want to experience. Um, Accomplishment works. It's not that it doesn't work. It's overused in the
Yeah.
industry, heavily overused. So
Do you
every
and
brand ever.
do you think it's been so oversold for like such a wide variety of products that it just kind of falls on deaf ears at this point?
I think so. I think that's why the consumers wait for bizarre ads to come out before they convert. You
Yeah.
often convert on ads that are not achievement focused because every brand and every industry and every single vertical is running the same exact type of emotional ad, and it's always achievement. lose weight, achieve your goals, buy a new car, train your puppy. Like that's goal focused. It's
Mhm.
great, but it doesn't tell me which emotion is underneath that achievement goal. So yeah, I
Gotcha.
I love it and I hate it.
Cool, cool. Let's talk about empowerment. What's that all about?
Empowerment. Oh, empowerment. This emotion is coming up heavily for the female focused markets right now, based upon just cultural changes. So empowerment is a really intense one. If you can use it and use it well, it's just incredibly powerful because depending on the culture that you grew up in and the generation that you're a part of, you may or may not have ever felt that you were capable of doing things for yourself. Now, this is different than feeling capable competence. This is more feeling capable because my parents never told me I was good at stuff. Or like I had a bully in high school that just like wouldn't leave me alone and constantly told me I would never amount to anything. This is more like internal, I would say, deeply internal. So if you can do an empowerment message and structure it correctly, this does something to humans that I've never seen any other emotion do, which is it can completely change deep seated behaviors. If you have one person believe in you and tell you that you're capable, it can change your entire life.
Do you think brands can be that voice?
I think so. Yeah. I've seen a lot Diva Cup is probably the biggest one that I've seen that uses this empowerment message of like take back your health as a female.
Mm.
Because the tampon industry is a multi-billion dollar industry that has been around for literal generations and has never changed. I mean, the only thing they've changed is like the applicator on the outside and like TMI for anybody who's in here. I'm sorry
I
if
have
you don't
no
like
clue
talking
what you're
about
talking
tampon.
about.
But like as a woman, if you have one specific product and you just don't have any other options in the market, what am I supposed to do? Right?
Yeah.
This is it. This is the only product I can use. There's nothing else. So these like different brands came out and created products that were actually safer, healthier, and more environmentally friendly, and easier to use than generations of one product that we had no control over. Empowerment comes down to like solving a deep problem that you didn't know you had. Oh God. It blows my mind. So yes, brands can absolutely like be an empowerment what would you call it? Like mentor for consumers for
Awesome.
sure.
Cool, cool. All right, we're down to the last one that's going to be super important for a lot of brands this Q4 because it speaks a lot to the psychology
Yeah.
of the gifters. Let's talk about the desire to nurture the people in our
Nurturance.
lives.
I love nurturance. There's nurturance in almost every single industry, and that's why I love it. This one goes deep into not just like wanting to care for the people in your life, but specifically wanting to show your appreciation for that person. And I think, oddly enough, in the American culture, appreciation actually comes very difficultly. Like it's a very vulnerable thing, I think, to tell somebody, I appreciate what you have done for me. Like, thank you. It's also very oddly very difficult for people to accept it. So this is the reason why I think gifters is such an interesting subgroup of consumers because they're actively looking for ways to say what they can't say with words, just based upon how our culture works. So if you can dive into this idea of nurturance or like showing appreciation for someone without having to actually verbally say it, there's a massive amount of stuff you can do with that as a brand because you're helping someone solve a verbal problem in a physical form.
Yeah, so this was one of the biggest emotions we uncovered when we did our research with you
Yeah.
for Original Grain. If you're like a lot of ecom brands, you're expecting to do, 40 or 50 or 60% of your annual revenue in Q4.
Yeah.
And for us, like even though we only sell men's watches, the majority of our customers are women.
Yeah.
And Sarah taught us that these women have this deep need to nurture the men in their lives. And she wrote us a headline. And at the time, I was like, yeah, that's fine. Like, it's not like
You thought it was fine. You
I
were
was like,
like,
yeah.
that's
I was
whatever.
like, yeah, it
It's
sounds
a
good.
headline.
Yeah. That first
That's
headline
amazing.
was show him he's worth it. And see, it was like, oh, okay, that's fine. But then we tested it and it worked really, really, really well. And then I couldn't resist. I love a good watch pun. So I said, show him he's worth every second.
Yeah.
And that one did a little bit better. And that was for Christmas of that year. And then the following Father's Day, we changed it to show dad he's worth
Yes.
every second.
That
And
was,
that
like,
one
the
exploded.
key. That was the key because you coupled a relationship with a need, like an
Yeah.
emotional need, and that's when it exploded.
I feel like that one made it so much more personal.
Yes. Oh
And,
my
like, just
gosh, yes.
it was another level of, like,
Mhm.
"Oh, damn, show dad he's worth every second is a big deal."
Yep,
So then
100%.
when we got to the following Christmas, we ran some ads that said, "Show dad" still, and it worked. But the ultimate winner was show your man he's worth every
Yes.
second with a gift as unique and classic as he is.
Oh,
And that one
so
has
good.
crushed for a year and a half now.
So good.
But again, because of what we learned just from changing it to show him to show dad, we knew that personalizing that
Yeah.
relationship was gonna be big. So we said, show your man is gonna be like, hey, like this is your man. Like,
Mhm.
we're not talking about
Ownership.
some guy you don't
Yeah.
know or like or love. Like, this is your guy that you've
Yep.
chosen to be with. Show him he's worth it.
Yep. Yep.
Tell us
Totally.
about, kind of the creation of this or other headlines you've written. Is this typically what you see, happen performance-wise when you just absolutely nail the emotion?
Yeah. This is pretty typical.
Yeah. It was cool for us.
Yeah.
I was super excited.
So the funny part is like all of this was built off of understanding the underlying emotions beneath the specific segments of consumers, right? So I run something called an NLP. It's a natural language processing report, which basically identifies these core emotions. So for you guys, we identified these top three emotions, which esteem, experience, nurturance. Um, and you go after these one at a time. You don't want to go in there and just like blend them all together and hope to figure out what's going on. The interesting part is as we were testing through these and we started with this idea of show him he's worth it, adding in this like secondary layer of which relationship are we
Mm,
targeting made all the difference for you guys because again there's thousands of different relationships you could test. Show your dad, show your brother, show your cousin, show your nephew, like whoever it is. There's so many different layers of relationship. But the deeper or more, I guess, connected relationships you can target, the better the results. So we targeted one that was specific to romantic relationships, and that one freaking crushed, like did
yeah.
so well in this ad account. And it's all based upon the fact that I think understanding consumers is great. Understanding what life they're living is even better because we can only go so deep by understanding angles, which is why I hate them. And you can only go so far by understanding demographic information,
Yeah.
but I can tell you amazing things if you give me an idea of what kind of lifestyle they're living. And that really helped too because you gave me a ton of context. These are blue collar guys. They work really hard. They work long hours. They got good family life. They're very dedicated. Some of them are very religious. Some of them are very, very dedicated to like, you know, being a better person for their families, being a better man. If you can understand all of that context, it's fairly easy to come in and say, okay, if that's the person he is, I can tell you the person she is.
Mm.
Because there's only a very specific type of person that would marry that kind of man.
That's awesome. Well, let's stay on that for a minute because I think that's really interesting, and I think that's something that a lot of brands underestimate going into Q4, where buyer behavior changes from,
Yeah.
it might be all year the end user is buying for themselves, but now you have to sell a product to someone close to them that's going to
Yes.
be buying it
Exactly.
for
Yeah.
a gift. Talk about how brands should kind of approach that transition.
Yeah. A lot of this is looking down into the culture of things. And I find this interesting because I feel like marketers have a hard time doing this. But it's growing that empathy muscle a little bit.
Mm,
So again, we went through an entire roster of like, let's talk about who this gift is for, the dude. Who is he? What's his life like? What's his daily life like? Is he tired? Is he exhausted all the time? Or is he like, totally fine with things? Does he not have a job? Like, who is he? And then let's think about the person that is attached to that. So when it comes to like prepping for Black Friday in particular, since it is such a big gifting holiday and the Christmas is too, we have to understand the person the gift is for, but then take a step back and like kind of look at who their like gifter person is as well. Because again, without knowing what that person is going for gift wise, it's going to be very difficult for us to message to that gifter and help them understand that this is the perfect gift for the person they're trying to appreciate. So some of this comes down to building an empathy muscle. If it's a difficult task or if it's something that you're like, I just don't have time to think this much, best thing you can do is go to chat and
Mm,
have chat dissect both of these people and say, what would you think if this is the blue collar guy that's going to be receiving the gift? Can you tell me what his wife is like?
mm,
Chat's got a lot of context. There's a lot of data over there that's running into that particular tool. You'll get pretty close, I think, if you
yeah.
start to use it that way.
Well, and then the other thing we talked about earlier today on a different episode, talk to your customers.
Yes,
Ask
call
ask
them
about
up.
their wives, ask
100%.
about their husbands,
Yep. That's
ask
the first
about
one.
what they do on a Friday night.
Yeah,
I think all
exactly.
that stuff can uncover, like,
Yeah,
so much of that lifestyle
yeah,
knowledge where, like, you start to understand who these people are, like, as a friend
yeah.
would, rather than their age, gender, location, household income. It doesn't really
100%.
tell you much about what they value.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, this stuff can be super impactful.
Yeah, 100%. Everybody should get on a call with their customers, and if you haven't, shame on you. You need to go do that today. Get on a call with them today. 100%.
All right, before we shift from kind of focused on messaging to focused on visuals, last couple speed run questions on messaging. Talk about different headline formats, the lengths of them, rhyme, alliteration, repetition. What should people be doing to in order to craft, really grabby, persuasive
Mm.
headlines?
There are so many studies around rhyming headlines. I can't even tell you. I need to look up the one that I just posted because it's fascinating what you can do if you can make something rhyme. It's one of those things for the brain that, like, it just remembers things better if they like rhyme with each other. I'm trying to think of like an easy one that comes up for a brand. This is why I always have to go to the internet. The weird part about rhyming is like it sticks a whole lot better deeper in the subconscious if you can make a jingle with it, like a
Mm,
sound. So this is the reason why, like,
like a good neighbor.
ba-da-ba-ba-ba, yeah, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. This is the
Yeah.
reason why I wish. I'm so sad that we don't do taglines anymore.
Yeah.
Rarely see a brand that comes with a tagline, and I wish they would do it because the biggest brands in the industry all have
I've crushed
taglines.
them.
I can't do the taglines. So, anyways, if you can make it rhyme, you can absolutely increase the recall level of anything that you're trying to say. So, try really hard to make it rhyme. For ads in particular, headlines, I cap it. I no longer than 7 words for a primary message. That's like your headline, right? Subheads can be a little bit longer, anywhere from 10 to 15 words long. But for your main core message in an ad, you have like milliseconds for people to grab it, ingest it, and want it. You got to keep them short, 4 to 7 words, no longer than that.
Show
Anything outside
your
of that.
man he's worth every second.
Oh, crushed it.
7. Let's go.
Crushed it.
Let's
7.
go.
Let's go. So
Cool.
yes, 4 to 7 4 to 7 words long. Try and make it rhyme. If you can't make it rhyme, that's fine. Emotion. Pick those emotional words. If you do if you're starting with fear, if you're starting with like excited, reach your goals, or any core word that you would use as a marketer, please don't do that. Don't put core words, especially emotional core words in your ads.
Yeah.
Go over to thesaurus.com
Yeah.
and type in the core word. Thesaurus will give you hundreds of different ways to say that one specific emotion. And from there, it's just testing nuances. Linguistic nuances are very important when it comes to like emotional resonancy. So, yes, pro
Awesome.
tips.
Sarah, thank you so much. That was such a great rundown on how to tackle messaging to hit these core emotions for Q4. And next up, let's talk about how to create visual content.